Okay, class, let's get started. We have quite a bit to talk about today, and mostly about Africa, to tell you the truth. And let's see here, last time we were together, and this is lecture number 14, by the way, so we are over the hump, we're over the top, and on the downhill side of it. It surely has been fun. All right, last time we were together, we talked about the subcontinent. I hope you recognize what the subcontinent is. That is India, of course. I think I mentioned to you about opium, which is one of the major products that was coming out of India at that time, probably still is, as a matter of fact here. And we mentioned that about the Sepoy Rebellion. I hope you recognize that. Sometimes it's referred to as the mutiny. And we went on up to China, and China was being literally carved up like a melon. Many European countries were trying to engage in the Chinese properties, if you will, in the Chinese economy. All right, and we mentioned that about the Opium Wars. Took place 1839, 1842, and that was just the first of several of these Opium Wars. Great Britain will come out favorably on that and gain the opportunity to use 5 Chinese cities, one in perpetuity. 99 years, that being Hong Kong. Great Britain does not lay claim to Hong Kong today, though. That belongs to the People's Republic of China. And somewhere through here, I think we talked about the Boxer Rebellion, and I hope you recognize that. 1900, highly nationalistic martial arts experts here who believed that they were invulnerable to bullets. All right, we also had the scramble for Africa. We began that anyway, and we're going to continue that very, very shortly, and everything you ever wanted to know about Africa, I hope to accomplish in about 30 minutes or less, something like that anyway. Dr. Livingston, I presume. Good story involved with that, with H.M. Stanley, Henry Morton Stanley, and I am convinced that he is an ancestor of mine, if you will. And anyway, Dr. Livingston. So let's get started into today's lecture here, folks. And again, we're going to be talking about Africa. So let's move on here. I find that many students are kind of deficient in their knowledge about Africa. So we're going to try to correct some of that today. And I will not hold you responsible for identifying the nations in Africa, but I will hold you responsible for being able to identify some of these countries, their conquest of Africa, their colonialization in that area. All right, so let's begin here. In 1875, 11% of Africa was under European control. Let that sink in, folks. That's 1875. Only 11% of Africa was under European control. But take a look at what's going to happen 27 years later. We're going to find that 90% of Africa is now under European control. This is what we refer to as the scramble for Africa. And if you're looking for the United States as a part of this, you're going to have to look awfully, awfully hard here, my friends, because the United States, we were not a part of this. This was a European affair. So let's move on here. Let's see some of the nations involved in this. Can't read my writing there, folks. That's 1876. 1876. Belgium took control of the Congo. And it looks like I'm going to have to go back and forth between the map behind me, but I might be able to shortcut that a little bit here, folks. And let me just show you where Congo is located here. That means I'm going to have to adjust my light contrast quite a bit too. But if you look in the very central parts here of Africa, this area right here, and it's a huge area, by the way, here, this is referred to as the Congo. On this old map that I have in front of you, it's called the Belgium Congo. And when I was in grade school and having to memorize all of these countries in Africa, that's the way we learned it. We learned it as the Belgium Congo. All righty, so anyway, and by the way, if some of you enjoy watching the movies on Tarzan, which I always do, The Legend of Tarzan. And if you watched that recently, anyway, you probably recognize the name there, King Leopold, and Leopold II here, and he was the one that was the leader of Belgium during this period of time. And that's where the Legend of Tarzan actually took place in the Congo. All right, since I have the camera back on me here, let me show you in Africa where the Congo is located, and it is right in this center part right here. It is an independent nation today, but back in those times, it was Belgium that laid control of it too. A lot of resistance from the people that actually lived there, that were natives of that area too. All right, so let's go back to our camera here and see a couple of other nations associated with this colonization of Africa. For Portugal laid claim in 1885. Don't need you to know the names here or the dates here, but laid claim to Angola and Mozambique. And let's see if I can find that on my map. Reading upside down, here's Angola, which is present here, and this is Mozambique, which is here. We'll go back to our camera right here. It looks like I'm going to have to make quite a bit of adjustments here, folks, back and forth back and forth. Here's where Angola is. We're talking about Portugal now, laying claim to this area, and also here to this area here, which is Mozambique. All right, shall we move right along here? And let's see what other countries are involved in this here. And for Italy will lay claim to Italian Somaliland. Eritrea, Libya. This will come later here, folks. 1911, 1912. Going to be somewhat instrumental in World War II, by the way, with Italy. They also made an attempt to take over the area of Abyssinia. Now, that's where Ethiopia is located today. And a 6,000-man force, Italian-man force, was sent into Abyssinia, and they were eliminated. They were wiped out to the very last man by the Abyssinians here. All right, so anyway, kind of hold that in mind here, folks. Maybe Italy, and maybe in the 1930s anyway, will have its designs refocused, if you will, on Ethiopia. Okay, so let's see where those areas are here, folks. We'll go back to my map here, and let me show you where the Italian Somaliland is. Where Eritrea is, Italian Somaliland is right in this area, right through here. Eritrea is in this area right through here. Where Abyssinia was, where the 6,000 or so Italian soldiers were completely eliminated, that was in Ethiopia, which Ethiopia is present right there. Okay, aren't we having fun with this? I like this sort of stuff here. Anytime it involves geography, I have a good time with that. All right, so let's move on to another nation. European nation. And this European nation here is Germany. Germany will lay claim to German West Africa. That's Namibia. Namibia as we know it today. The Cameroons. They also lay claim to Togo. Today we refer to it as Togoland. And for Germany, they will likewise lay claim to German East Africa. That's Tanzania. Let's see if I can find those on my map here. And like I said, I sometimes have a challenge here trying to read all of this upside down. But here we have Southwest Africa, which is present right here. That is referred to as Namibia today. We have Germany also over here in German East Africa, which is right in this area right over here. That is Tanzania. It doesn't look like it's very close to being in focus here, folks. All right, I'll try to show this to you on the other map. The Cameroons here, I'm trying to find that, is right up in here. Togoland is right over in here. So if we go back to our map here, folks, and look at the map of Africa behind us here, we can find Namibia here, which was German, Southwest Africa. And we have also up here Tanzania, which was German, East Africa. The Cameroons were present here, and right over here it was Togoland. Those of you that have watched Raiders of the Lost Ark, you know what I'm talking about with that. There had a lot of Germans that were present there, and it's my perception that it took place probably in the Cameroons. All right, so back we go here, and let's see what other countries can be identified with this scramble for Africa. Spain. And Spain will take over the area and lay claim to Spanish Morocco. That's only a small area, by the way, easy to understand. We also have Rio de Oro, the River of Gold. Today we refer to it as Western Sahara. Let's see if I can do it like this here. Where Spanish Morocco is, it's right across from Gibraltar here. That's where it is, right through here. And if we look at Rio de Oro, Western Sahara, that is in this area right through there. Okay, so anyway, so back we go here, folks. Oops. And I'm going to put it the wrong direction. And for France. And France will have a large stake at hand here in claiming areas here to Africa, to include Madagascar, Algeria. I'll come back to these in just a few minutes. What is called French West Africa. Today that includes Mali and Niger and Mauritania. France will also lay claim to French Equatorial Africa. And your textbook doesn't do this very well with its map showing these areas here, folks. So I'm just doing the best I can with it. France will lay claim to Tunisia. And lay claim, this is not in Africa, but France will also claim Southeast Asia. Where I'm talking about is the countries today, anyway, of Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia. Back when I was in school ages ago, we always referred to this as French Indochina. That is not what it's referred to as today. We have French Morocco, and didn't spell it very well right here, so I rewrote it for you, French Morocco, which is in the northern parts here. Okay, so let me make an attempt here to try to show you where those areas are. We'll look behind me here, and as we do so here, we can see French West Africa, which is this area here of Niger, Mali, Mauritania. Let's see, we had Algeria, which is present here. French Morocco, present right over here. Tunisia is this country, which is here. We had some of the other countries here. I can't read this. And French Equatorial Africa, which is Chad today. Madagascar, which is this country right here. It's actually an island itself there. I'd like to go there someday. I've never been there. All right, so anyway, let's see here what else we have with this. We also have colonization by Great Britain. Great Britain was extremely aggressive in this area, and they would lay claim to South Africa, also Sudan, Egypt, Kenya, Uganda. I wrote that in later in a different color. Nigeria, Gold Coast, Gambia, Northern Rhodesia, Southern Rhodesia, what is referred to as Bechuanaland, and that is Zambia today, I believe it is anyway, British Somaliland, and also Sierra Leone. All right, let's go back here and we'll touch on a few of those countries on the map behind me here, see where they are located. South Africa is this large country. It's present right here. We had northern southern Rhodesia, which today are recognized as Botswana, Zimbabwe, if you will, Zambia, which is present there. Great Britain would also lay claim here to Uganda. Where's Uganda? Here, right here. Also Sudan, which is present here. Egypt, which is here too. Other areas here, Nigeria, we have Ghana, which is present here. Sierra Leone, which is there. Liberia, incidentally, is an independent country. And Gambia is located right there. There you go here, friends. Everything you ever wanted to know about Africa and geography here. All right, so I'd like you to be kind of familiar with that, particularly with the major countries and those areas that they did lay claim to. And I'm not going to bring out an examination here and have you to list the countries here that are found in Africa. Okay, so anyway, let's move right along here. And I want to continue talking about Great Britain because we have a little problem that's taking place here with Great Britain. And where this is going to deal with is in South Africa. So let me get it back here where you can read this. And what's going to take place here, folks, is the individuals that lived in South Africa are mostly black Africans. And I'm not being prejudiced when I say that. They were mostly black Africans. But when Europeans, particularly England, came into this area, this introduced white people into the area. So I'll make a distinction here. We now have white Africans. So we have black Africans, which are native to Africa, and then we have white Africans that over the generations will become native to Africa too. And for many of these people that lived in South Africa, and let me show you where South Africa is, just to refresh your memory on this. South Africa is a southern country, which is present right there. I've not been there, and I think I might like to go there someday. I'm not sure. The flight makes it kind of challenging to you good folks. But the white Africans that lived there were mixtures of French and Germans and Dutch. French, Germans, and Dutch. And of course, you had a lot of English that were present there too, but I'm not talking about the English right at this second. Now, for these individuals that were of French and German and Dutch descent, they were referred to as the Boers, B-O-E-R-S, the Boers. The word translates to mean Dutch farmers. And even though it translates to mean Dutch farmers, it's not exclusively Dutch. It is French and Germans and Dutch. French, Germans, and Dutch. They are referred to as the Afrikaners. And that's where the problem lies right there. Because these Afrikaners, the French and the German and the Dutch, were very resistant to the English leadership, the leadership of the English. They were unhappy with that. So a war broke out. And actually it's a couple of wars here, folks, but the war I want to address right here is the war from 1899 to 1902, and it is referred to as the Boer War. And that's going to be one of your examination questions, so you need to be able to recognize this on the Boer War. So this is going to be a war that takes place between the British Army, and that of these Afrikaners. That's these farmers, if you will, that are French, German, and Dutch descent. And when the war first started, the Afrikaners, the Boers, came out and tried to meet the British and fight in a traditional way. Well, the British are too good. The British are just too accomplished here. And the Boers learned very well, very quickly here, that if they meet the British nose to nose, they're going to be carved up themselves, you know. It's just not going to work out very effectively. So what the Boers did, they began commando warfare. This is like guerrilla warfare, where you don't fight in conventional ways. You know, you serve to ambush the British. You lure the British into a settlement, and then you just ambush them. And that's the way the Boers would work, and they were extremely effective with this, and took just vast numbers of British lives with that. And as the war dragged on, the British became more and more ruthless in ways in which they would handle these Boers. What they would actually do, they would set up concentration camps and turn civilians, and I'm talking about Afrikaner civilians, and as many as 20,000 of those Afrikaners, these were mostly women, girls, children that were not fighting for the Boers itself. But I want to go back to some likenesses here, and these would all be on the easel in the classroom, you know, for you to view, and showing you some photographs of the Boers. Now, these are not British now. These are the Afrikaners. These are the Afrikaners, the Boers themselves, fighting commando style there. Anyway, you can see an article there on them. Here's another one here. Farmers in Arms, 1892, 1902, showing you a typical Boer fighter. Here's one of the leaders here. The Boers used very effectively these commando leaders. This is Christian de Wet. You may be familiar with another individual by the name of Louis Botha, B-O-T-H-A. Anyway, and so those are some of the interesting articles on these. And let's see here. I wrote the names down here for you to look at. Like I said, the British established concentration camps. All right, now this is overall here, friends, if I can get this squared up for you folks. This is overall. It is estimated that the British used as many as 500,000 British soldiers. 500,000 British soldiers. And the Boers had about as 90,000, if you can read my writing. So the Boers were greatly outnumbered. Hence, they had to use commando operations here. It is estimated anyway that for the British, they lost 28,000, and that's killed in battle. And for the Boers, they lost 4,000. All right, this war will finally come to a close in 1902. Good luck in your pronunciation here, folks. Good luck in your spelling of the name of this treaty, Vereeniging. Vereeniging is the name of this treaty, which was signed between the Boers and also that of the British. And it seems very simple, you know, what the British get out of the Boers here. The Boers will now recognize the kingship, the leadership of the British King Edward VII. In other words, they accept him. He is the king. He is the king of South Africa. He's the king of the United Kingdom, actually. But he is the one that they will recognize. And in turn, the Boers will get control here of two areas of South Africa, one of which is called the Transvaal, and the other which is known as the Orange Free State. And I'm looking on a map here trying to identify where these areas are. Well, to keep from having to go back to my large map here, you can't see it here, but it's in this area right through here. You can vaguely make it out. This is a Transvaal, and then the Orange Free State, which is present in this area likewise here. Okay, and so what is the name of that war? And that war is referred to as the Boer War. And I want you to remember that here. Now, a lot of history behind that. A lot of people are quite proud of that too. If you go to Great Britain, for example, not very far from Buckingham Palace, here's a monument that commemorates the British dead. So understand what I'm saying now. This is a monument that commemorates the British dead. So this statue is present in right outside Buckingham Palace in London itself. Now, if we go to the other side, and I misplaced one of my photographs, about tore my office up just a little bit ago trying to find this photograph. And I never did find that one. I found found this one, but this photograph was taken in Quebec. Quebec, of course, is in Canada, and this is a monument that celebrates the Boers, that commemorates the Boers that were present there. All right, so we had both sides. We had one, which was the one found in London, which commemorates that, represents that, of the English that died, and now this represents the commandos, the French commandos, French Boers that actually died. And I had another one here that was a statue of French commandos, but like I said, I literally tore my office apart trying to find that, and I will continue to do so after I finish this lecture today. Okay, so let's move on here. Now, we're talking about colonialism, and this may be something that you're not real familiar with. I don't know why that's not getting level here, folks. You may not be familiar with this unless you've taken my U.S. history class, but the United States, we were actually imperialistic. We displayed colonialism. A splendid little war, as our Secretary of State, John Hay, described it as, was that of the Spanish-American War. Spanish-American War was fought in 1898 here, class, and for the Spanish-American War, it lasted exactly 4 months. I don't think of any war as being a splendid little war, but if there ever was one, this is the one that it was here. And what this war, the two opponents here, of course, is the United States and that of Spain. That's why we call it the Spanish-American War, of course, with that. And all that remained of the Spanish Empire was Puerto Rico and Cuba and Guam and the Philippines. And that's all that remained of the Spanish Empire, this huge, huge empire that they once had. And in Cuba, and I don't want to make this a long story here, folks, but in Cuba, Cuba had long wanted its independence over Spain. And so the United States was interested in trying to help the Cubans gain their independence. And we had a Cuban presence, we had American presence down in Cuba, down in Havana, and other places there. And we sent a ship, it was a gunboat, if you will, called the USS Maine. I'm not going to go into this in too great detail here, folks, because this is U.S. history. And when the Maine sailed into Havana Harbor there in February of 1898, crazily enough here, the Maine was harbored there, and it blew up. And when it blew up, 260 sailors lost their lives. And, of course, immediately the Americans blamed Spain for it, not the Cubans, because Cubans were trying to get their independence. And we blamed Spain for it. And the rallying cry across America, remember the Maine. Remember the Maine, and the hell with Spain. And so a rash of war activity rushed across America here. And for the President of the United States, William McKinley, he wasn't actually anxious for war, and he just demanded from Spain, he wanted a payment for the Maine, the ship that we had lost, and in the concentration camps that the Spanish had established over the Cubans there, and grant Cuba its independence. And when Spain refused to grant Cuba its independence, then Spain, crazily enough, Spain declared war on the United States. It didn't go very well for Spain here. And some of you may be familiar with Teddy Roosevelt and the Rough Riders. They fought there. My great-grandfather enlisted in the Army. He did not go to Cuba to fight, but he was a part of the Spanish-American War. And for the Americans here, we ended up sending the United States Navy into Manila Bay in the Philippines, and we literally took over the Philippines itself. For the United States, we took over Guam, we took over Puerto Rico, and all that remained there was Cuba. And that's where I brought up a few minutes ago about Teddy Roosevelt and the Rough Riders charging up Kettle Hill. Some people refer to it as San Juan Hill, and we forced the capitulation of the Spanish, and the Spanish surrendered there. So what does the United States get out of this? Well, we got a number of things here, folks. We gained control of Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico today is a U.S. territory. We gained control of Guam. We likewise gained control of the Philippines. We were kind enough to pay the Spanish $20 million for the Philippines. We just took Puerto Rico and Guam outright, and we established a protectorate over Cuba, which is really not a protectorate, because when the Spanish left the United States, we moved in, and we went in and established factories and railroads and schools, and we just took over where Spain left out. And of course, this causes a lot of conflict between the United States and Cuba. Cuba is a separate nation today, as we well know here, folks. And let's see what else happens here. And we eventually granted the Philippines their independence on July the 4th in 1946. For the United States, we were also imperialistic down in the area of Panama. Panama was part of Colombia at that time, and we had aspirations to complete a canal that had been started by the French. It was 40% completed, if you will. And anyway, for the President of the United States at that time, Teddy Roosevelt, we staged a revolt by the Panamanian individuals there, and ordinarily, this had been done before, and ordinarily Colombia would send its military up into Panama and stop that rebellion. Only this time, when they sent their army up, the United States Army was present there, and we prevented the Colombians from stopping the rebellion. And 3 days after that, Teddy Roosevelt, President of the United States, declared the República de Panamá, the Republic of Panama, and Panama had its independence. And that's when the Panama Canal was constructed there, folks, from 1903 until 1914, I believe it was anyway. Fun place to visit, by the way, if you go to Panama, but it is an independent country. It is not controlled by the United States. All right, let's see what else here, folks. Again, we get into a lot of U.S. history with that. For the United States, we had an interest in Hawaii. We wanted to establish a wayfaring sea station there in Honolulu, at Pearl Harbor. And anyway, make a long story short here, folks, we forced the capitulation of the Queen of Hawaii, Queen Liliuokalani there, folks. And the United States made Hawaii a U.S. territory, and it became a state in 1959. The United States also purchased Alaska from Russia for $7.2 million, and it became a state in the United States of America in 1959. For America, we were also imperialistic in that we took over half of the Samoan Islands. The other half of Samoan Islands is owned by Germany today. The United States also took control of Wake Island and Midway. So we in the United States, we have been imperialistic here, folks, just like other countries. Other than we were not in Africa. We were not in Africa. We did have a presence, of course, in China. All right, so anyway, let's move right along here, folks. I'm going to go into a different chapter here, and we're going to get back to rivalries, trade markets, that sort of thing here. And we also need to introduce I need to introduce you to what is referred to as the Second Industrial Revolution. Everybody recall the First Industrial Revolution? This took place in 1780 roughly to 1870 roughly anyway. And in the First Industrial Revolution, this was associated with textiles, associated with coal, iron, steam. I'm sure you all recall those most interesting lectures there about Richard Arkwright and James Hargreaves and John Kay. Whew. Anyway, all right, so anyway, let's before we actually get into the Second Industrial Revolution, from 1870 to 1914, we will find that there's going to be a sharp increase in international political and economic rivalries, and this will take place here in China, and in India, and in Africa. So we're going to see the beginning of the Second Industrial Revolution. Quite a bit different than that of the First Industrial Revolution. And now we're going to see the introduction here of steel. And I want to talk a few seconds here about steel. And I had one of my little props that's disappeared on me here, so I should have been better prepared, seems like here, folks. But steel has considerable advantages over that of iron. You can imagine trying to shave yourself, if you will, with a railroad spike, which is made out of iron. I'd much rather use a razor that has steel blades rather than, having an iron railroad spike. Steel has advantages in that it has lower carbon content, it is lighter, it is malleable, it is harder. Now, malleable, what I mean by that, we can bend steel. If you try to bend a railroad spike, I think you're going to find yourself, having a challenge in front of you. Steel is stronger, it has a better cutting edge, it holds a cutting edge a lot better than that of iron. It's a little bit more resistant to rusting and so forth. Okay, so how do we manufacture steel? Well, steel, of course, comes from iron. Here's some facts right here that you'll never use in your life here, folks. But iron has a melting point of 1,535 degrees Celsius, so it's a very, very high melting point to get iron lava, so to speak, that we can process into steel. Now, one of the processes that we use to manufacture steel is a process which was developed by Henry Bessemer. Henry Bessemer was an Englishman. This is referred to as the Bessemer process. And what we do here, folks, is once we get liquefied, or as I should say, iron to the point to where we have iron lava, we can pass air through it. And when air passes through it, it removes the impurities out of the iron and creates, shall we say, high-grade steel. That's what I'm call it anyway, high-grade steel. We also had another process developed by Siemens brothers, those are Germans, and Pierre Martin, who is French, and this is called the Siemens-Martin process here. And this process differed a little bit from that of the Bessemer process. By the way, my eyes focus back here on Bessemer. Would anybody like to tell me where there is a steel producing industry that's not very far from Jasper, Alabama? Well, we've all heard of Red Mountain in Birmingham here, folks, the Magic City, and this Magic City is going to materialize magically after the American Civil War with the steel production industry there. Recognize the name of Bessemer, which is a suburb of Birmingham? Well, that's named for Henry Bessemer here, folks. But back to the Siemens-Martin process here. By taking waste gases and passing these waste gases through the molten lava here and introducing scrap iron, this produces high-grade steel. Both of these processes, the Bessemer process and the Siemens-Martin process, still have problems with too much phosphorus. PO4 here, folks. All right, so how do we deal with the phosphorus problem? Well, let me introduce you to two other individuals here. And these two guys, and they're cousins to each other. It seems like you get a little bit more original than this, but one of the cousins is named Sidney Gilchrist Thomas, and his cousin is Sidney Gilchrist. I wrote that down wrong. It's Sidney Gilchrist Thomas and Sidney Gilchrist here. I think you could get a little bit more original with names than that here. But what they found is that you could add lime or limestone. Now, limestone is calcium oxide. We could add that product into the steel, and it would reduce the amount of phosphorus that was present there. All right, so anyway, now we produce high-grade steel. Shall we move on here, folks? From 1914. By 1914, Germany was producing twice the amount of steel as Great Britain. I find that to be greatly amazing here, folks. In Germany today and in World War II was a huge steel-producing country. And look at this. For the United States was producing double the amount of steel as Germany. So we in the United States, we are number one in the world in steel production. All right, we all know that here. Bessemer. We have Pittsburgh. Bessemer was referred to as the Pittsburgh of the South. You may be familiar with Carnegie Steel Corporation with Andrew Carnegie. Perhaps you're familiar with it anyway. But in 1901, Andrew Carnegie sold out Carnegie Steel Corporation to John Piermont Morgan, J.P. Morgan, who created U.S. Steel. Some of you may have parents, or maybe yourself, work in the steel mills in Birmingham, Bessemer, and those areas here. All right, so anyway, so that is steel for us here, folks, and that is a part of the Second Industrial Revolution. All right, let's move right along here. And another part of the Second Industrial Revolution is that of electricity. All right, so let's spend a few seconds here talking about electricity. Electrical power. Now, we can take electricity and we can produce out electricity. We can produce heat energy. We can also produce light energy out of that. Give a little history on this. For 1800, Alessandro Volta, he is Italian, by the way, developed the chemical battery. This is what it looked like. Don't ask me to explain it here, my friends. I have no clue how this works here. As you can see, Alessandro Volta. Anyway, and developed the chemical battery. Michael Faraday, let me get his name down so that you can read this. Michael Faraday, in 1866, developed the electromagnetic generator. That's another contribution that we'll see here in the way of electricity. We can also use, and by the way, electricity can also be generated by water. Imagine this like we have waterfalls, and the flow of the water, the power of the water flowing over the waterfalls there can be used to generate electricity. It actually can. And we can use that electrical power there to power machinery here. All right, so anyway, like spinning mills, spinning looms, that sort of thing. All right, on we go here, folks. And one of my favorite individuals of all time is that of Thomas Edison, Thomas Alva Edison. When I was a young boy, everything I could find on Thomas Edison, and a person that will shortly follow here, I would read that. And every book I could find on Thomas Edison. And of course, in 1879, he developed you will call it a light bulb. I will refer to it as the incandescent light filament. And so now we can illuminate homes, and not only illuminate homes, we can illuminate street lamps. We can illuminate lamps and place those on street corners, which would, of course, replace the fuel oil lamps that you had at that time. Thomas Edison developed a number of products, too many to recognize here, folks, at his research laboratories in West Orange, New Jersey, and Menlo Park there. He developed the motion picture. At first, this was referred to as the kinetoscope, and later, of course, it would be like a movie camera. And this will lead to movie production and so forth. Thomas Edison developed the electric chair. Boy, I miss that electric chair today here. Big yellow mama like Alabama used to have here, folks. We don't use the electric chair anymore. We use lethal injection. You know, I think if you're going to commit the crime, you should be prepared to pay the consequences here. Man up to it. You know, request the electric chair. None of that sissy lethal injection. All right, moving right along here, folks. In 1876, Alexander Graham Bell. We can't read my writing very well. Alexander Graham Bell developed the telephone. Watson, come quick, I need you, was the first telephone conversation that took place. I always admired Alexander Graham Bell like I did with Thomas Edison when I was a young man here. Every book I could find on Alexander Graham Bell, I read that, because I was so fascinated with him. His wife was deaf, his mother was deaf, so he had this interest in sound production. That's what he wanted more than anything else. So he would work on sounds here, develop the telephone. And from my childhood, the one thing I remember about Alexander Graham Bell more than anything else, of all that time and all the amount of material I read on him, was that he taught his dog to talk. I love that story. He taught his dog to talk. And I'll tell you the way he did this. Dogs do not have vocal folds like we have, like a voice box and that sort of thing. But he trained his dog to growl. And so his dog would growl on command. And what Alexander Graham Bell would do, he would manipulate the laryngeal region here of the dog so that when the dog growled, it would make sounds like human voices. And the one I remember was that he would rub the dog's larynx or laryngeal region, such as that, and the dog would say, "I love you, Grandma," which I always thought that was very, very fun. And pity my poor dog, because I worked for months after that with this, trying to get my dog to talk, and he would always just snap at me in return. All right, let's move on here, folks. All right, so that's Alexander Graham Bell. He developed the telephone, and by 1990, I mean to say, we had 500,000 telephones in the households of America here. And that's going to change the lifestyles of many, many Americans here. Today, we just carry our telephone around with us. All right, sometimes I wish we just didn't have those things. Okay, let's see what else we have. We're going to see the emergence of steam engines, steam turbines. That will come out during this period of time. We also see chemical technology. Chemicals, that's another part of this. In addition to steel and electricity, we have chemicals. And from this, we can develop organic compounds. We can develop alkalis. We can develop this. And we can use those for a variety of purposes here, folks. We can manufacture synthetic dyes, hand soaps, household cleansers. We can manufacture paper. It requires bleach. To manufacture paper here, folks. And bleach, of course, is a chemical compound. The Germans were the best in the world with this. They will lead the way. The Germans will manufacture fertilizers, petroleum refining, explosives. That was a part of this. They made use of this acid. I've already written out the answer. If we were in class right now, I would ask any of you if you know what H2SO4 is known as. It's known as sulfuric acid. All right, and the Germans were very, very good with this. I'll have to share a little something with you good folks. when I was a kid, and I guess I was kind of a weird child here, but when I was a kid, I would always ask every year for a chemistry set, and that would be my Christmas toy. And my mom and daddy would get me a chemistry set, and the next Christmas I would ask for a chemistry set and a biology set with that. And I always envisioned myself as being a chemist. And when I took chemistry in high school. When I started college, my major was chemistry here, folks, and I took 5 courses in chemistry, ended up with a minor in chemistry during my college days here, and I took a couple of biology courses and realized, I like biology a little bit better than chemistry, so biology became my major and chemistry became my minor. All right, and so I taught for so many years, 23 years, I taught biology. I never did teach chemistry at all. I had a certification to teach chemistry, but I just never did teach chemistry. And then I made a big change in my life here, folks, because I was so interested in history. My Boy Scoutmaster, Mr. Sandlin, he would fill me, when I was a little boy, he would fill my head with stories about history, and it always stayed with me. And even though I was a biologist and a chemist here, I made a change here in 1980 and decided I wanted to be a historian. And sure enough, I went back to school and got my credentials, and I became a historian. And now I'm sitting here staring at you, and you're staring at me. I hope you're staring at me and paying attention here, folks. And I've now been a historian here for 24 years. Okay, so anyway, that's my life stories, useless information, and I appreciate you indulging me on that. Okay, so let's see what else is going to take place here. All right, we're likewise going to develop the internal combustion engine. And this will take place a little bit later here, folks. And a note I made here on my slide in 1859, an American by the name of Edwin L. Drake, and he discovered oil and this oil was discovered at Titusville, Pennsylvania. That's about 100 miles north of where Pittsburgh is located, and a series of oil wells there would produce 500 barrels of oil a day. And nobody knew what to do with it. They honestly did not know what to do with oil. You could use it to make paraffin, lubricating oil. We could make fuel lamps out of it, but nobody really knew what to do with it until we had the development of the internal combustion engine. And then we could use oil, which could be processed into gasoline, and we could use it to power that engine. Huge oil deposits were located in Russia, in Borneo, also in Texas at Spindletop. If you were taking my U.S. history course, I would elaborate on that here, folks. At Spindletop, that was in 1901, by the way. John D. Rockefeller capitalized on that, created Standard Oil Company that would serve as a monopoly in the oil industry for many, many years to come here. Some of the other developments that we're going to see at this time. Nobody understood germ theory of disease, and we just did not know. People did not have any idea about bacterial agents or viral agents at that time. We had a lot of people that were dying from tuberculosis. On the other hand, we're going to find that we have better diets, we have better sanitation here, and life expectancy is going to increase here. We had less infant mortality to take place. One of the pioneers of improving the foods that we eat was that of a Frenchman by the name of Louis Pasteur, who developed this purification process known as pasteurization. We use high heat, intense heat, that will purify food products, particularly that of milk, that sort of thing. And this will pretty much eradicate tuberculosis. Robert Koch introduced the germ theory of disease. It's germs that cause disease, not the other way around. This is referred to as the germ theory of disease, Robert Koch. Okay, let's move on here, folks. For Europeans, and I'm about to close here, folks, for Europeans, we will find that they will have a higher standard of living than ever before. We will continue that at another time. We will also see in Europe and also in the United States that department stores will emerge. Department stores and chain stores will appear here. And very often they will use, not very often, always, they will use advertising. They will put advertisements out. I don't have any of these right in front of me, otherwise I would show you some of those. There are some in your textbook. We would use window displays And ladies, I apologize for this, but those those are store operators of those department stores, they are playing on your emotions right there. If they can plus put out window displays, we still do it today, if we can put those window displays out, this is going to lure you into the store so that you can spend your precious money. And if you don't have precious money here, folks, by this time, you can buy on credit. You can buy on credit, and you can buy now, and you can pay later here. That's a dangerous, dangerous practice, by the way, here. But I'm not prepared here to give you folks a little fatherly lecture on that because you probably heard it before or you've learned it through experience here. So I'm going to go back to me for a second here, folks. I enjoyed the section here on Africa, that on the Second Industrial Revolution. I like that all right, you know, about as much as the First Industrial Revolution. But we're moving right along here, my friends, and we're going to move into in fact, we're going to go back to some of our old friends here, Karl Marx, and we're going to go into rebellion and revolution again here. And ladies, you're going to get the right to vote here. So I'm going to stop for the time being here, folks. This is lecture number 14. You're going to have lecture 15 coming out, 16, 17, then you have your next examination. So stay on topic here, folks, and learn your material. All righty, thank you for your attention.